Welcome to Close Up Radio, where our hosts Doug Llewellyn and Jim Masters engage today's top thinkers from around the world to bring you information, inspiration, and thought-provoking ideas you can put to use in your personal and professional life right now. Covering a broad range of topics, Close Up Radio digs deep to discover what makes today's top thinkers tick. Close Up Radio, where ideas matter. And now, here's today's host, Jim Masters.
Welcome, everybody, to Close Up Radio. This is your host, Jim Masters. A pleasure to have you with us. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on February 23rd, 2022. And Close Up Radio, of course, is a service of the Telly Award-winning Close Up Television Radio. For the next 30 minutes, we have another incredible guest joining us here. Forensic engineer and expert witness Marcor Platt is joining us from South Jordan, Utah. You know, structural and civil engineers are deeply involved in the day-to-day operations of creating and maintaining the built environment in which we all live. Maintaining safe and serviceable infrastructure is a complex process, and things can go and do go wrong from time to time. Failure occurs when all or part of the built environment becomes unsafe or unfit. And when large-scale structural failures occur, like the collapse last June of the Champlain Towers South in Miami, where lives were lost, you sort of question our built environment. This is where Marcor Platt comes in, a forensic structural engineer. He says there is a phenomenon he often encounters when he investigates the cause of a failure, which is that there were signs beforehand that the failure was likely. It's extraordinary work that he does. Growing up, Marcor, says he loved math and physics, logic, and how these all applied in the physical world. He was also raised on cattle ranches in central Utah and eastern Arizona. He built fences and sheds and other infrastructure with his father to support the ranching operations. Later, at his own house, he designed and built a swing set and chicken coop with his children. Matter of fact, there are some rotating photos you can see on our cover page for Close Up Radio, and you can see evidence of some of those wonderful experiences. Today, he lives in Utah and works with Precision Systems Engineering, where he specializes in both structural and civil forensic engineering services, structural design, and providing expert testimony regarding many of the facets involved in creating and maintaining our built environment. Says he doesn't focus on generating a high volume of expert witness work. He will accept a forensic or expert witness study only when he has the resources and expertise to do it very well. It is my pleasure to welcome Marcor Platt to the show for the next 30 minutes for an incredible conversation. Marcor, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure for me to be on the program today.
You are very, very welcome. I know you're a very busy guy, so for us to have 30 minutes with you, we are the lucky ones, very much the lucky ones. A pleasure having you here. I like to humanize our guests, make them relatable for the audience. I would love to know, Marcor, what inspired you to choose structural engineering? This passion that you have to do it. Tell us about that.
Sure. So you already mentioned, Jim, that growing up, I loved math, science, physics, but those seemed a little too abstract for me. Fortunately, like you mentioned, I was raised with a very hands-on father, a rancher, and a military man. It helped me appreciate and love the real world, and I was able to find in engineering and structural engineering in particular how I could take these beautiful concepts that I learned in math and physics and actually apply them to the real world. And so I combined two things I love doing, and I've been doing it pretty much my whole career.
When you combine things that you love and it's your career, there's absolutely nothing better than that. Tell us about, obviously why you're doing it today and you're continuing to do it. It's obviously work that really speaks to who you are.
Yes. So I, starting off, like most engineers, we start off designing something. In a structural engineer's case, it's some type of building or something that that we expect to stand in the world. And then in my career, about halfway through, I was introduced, actually to back up, in college I was introduced to forensic engineering. In the 4 years I went, we would listen to a speaker every week, and we had one speaker that was a forensic engineer. That one stood out to me. So 6 years into my career, when I had an opportunity to do forensic engineering with a wonderful engineering firm, I took it and I got into I guess the real application of how the concepts and theories we learn about in school actually apply or don't apply in the real world. I got to see how things fail and how things should be built and how they're often built. And so, today I do that because, that really, to me, is the most fascinating aspect of what an engineer does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, it's so fascinating work because you're called upon so often. Let's talk about the background in civil and structural engineering. How did you develop this expertise that you possess today?
So, my education, my bachelor's and master's degree from Brigham Young University were in civil engineering and mathematics, and structural engineering specifically. And then I've worked for 12 and a half years since graduating. I've done design work. I started off doing electrical power lines, and I also have designed, houses, residential buildings, commercial buildings, industrial buildings, and landscape buildings, and pretty much anything that you see, that most of us encounter. I've had the opportunity to have some experience with the design and creation of that. And so, but my expertise probably really as an expert and being able to testify as an expert came from the last 6 years. I've gotten into heavy forensic work and conducted between 500 and 600 studies over a wide variety of how things go wrong with our built environment, and that prepared me for the last 3 years. I've been serving as an expert witness in trials and legal matters.
Tell us a little bit about forensic engineering. Maybe you can break it out for us. Where do forensic engineering studies come from? For folks listening, they're saying, it sounds really fascinating, but really, what is forensic engineering? How does it all work?
So, very simply, forensic engineering is the study of why something went wrong. And in the structural case, it's the study of why something went wrong in our buildings or our built environment. And so the sources of things that go wrong can really be divided into three categories. And this is where most of this, or I guess probably all of the studies come from. The first is nature. We encounter a wide variety of hazards: wind, snow, hail, rain, flood, fire, lightning, earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, rock slides, blasts, just the aging of our environment. All of these things, can contribute to some type of issue or failure in our built environment. And that's probably most of the source of what I study. But the second category is there's humans. We can just by being human, the things we design sometimes don't turn out the way they should. There's maybe construction issues that come up. There's vandalism. There's accidents, impact from vehicles, and there can just be lack of maintenance and do-it-yourself projects, things that sometimes don't exactly go as we want, and there's a fair amount of those that call for a forensic engineer. And then the last category is just really legal disputes, questions about how the building code should be interpreted, or whether a contract, whether there was clarity in a contract, or even project management and budgets. All these things go into creating our built environment, and things like you mentioned at the beginning can and do go wrong. So forensic engineers really can aid in any of those.
So, it's really fascinating. You talked earlier about how you were introduced to forensic engineering a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about that as far as your introduction. And I think it's also fascinating for the audience to realize that this also developed for you into expert witness work, which is really, really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I, like I said, 6.5 years after designing buildings and other structures, I began investigating causes of failure. I did that for 3 years pretty much exclusively, and studied all of those phenomena that I mentioned that Mother Nature throws at us. I've seen the impacts of all the human errors I mentioned, and so I got to get a wide range of experience investigating a lot of different types of failures. And eventually, some of those investigations led to, were brought up in a court case, and so I started having to defend my opinions that I had formed, and I found that was very fascinating as well, and actually changed a little bit. Made me a better and more careful investigator, and I learned that's a very actually it's a field where I can actually have a lot of impact.
That's fantastic. That really is amazing. What do structural engineers do as expert witnesses? Reports, depositions, courtrooms, all kinds of things. Tell us about that.
So the first thing that a structural engineer would do is prepare a report. So when a need arises or there's a study that comes up, the first thing I'll do is try to gather as much information as I can. I'll interview people. I'll do some preliminary research. And we all hopefully can remember when in 6th grade we learned about the scientific method. And that's basically what I do. I form some hypotheses, and then after I do that, I'll actually go to the site where the failure happened, usually at someone's house or a building, a commercial building, or even something else, some other structure. And I'll take pictures, I'll interview people on site, I'll pick up samples, and take those back with me, and then I'll spend some time testing my hypotheses against what I saw. So if I need to, I'll send materials into a lab to be tested, or I'll order more specialized testing at the site. And when I get all that data together, I'll determine whether my hypotheses were correct, and I'll form conclusions, and then I'll present it all in a stamped and sealed engineering report.
I tell you, it's really amazing the work that you do. You really have to be skilled. You have to be patient. You have to have a keen eye, like you do as well. Like you say, preparing the report, and your role as an expert in depositions as well, right?
Yes. So often, like I said, studies. Well, not terribly often, but there's a fair amount of studies that result in a legal dispute, and at that point, I'll often get deposed by the opposing counsel. And in a deposition, really the point of that is to expound and defend my opinions and prepare the both sides to try the facts and hopefully be able to resolve the dispute. But if it doesn't resolve and it goes to trial, then my role as an expert is to bear testimony of the facts and the opinions and the conclusions that I came to based on all my experience and the studies I did, and also persuade the jury really of my opinion and advocate for why I reached the conclusions I did.
Which makes complete sense, and again, it's really extraordinary. Now, with courtrooms, what is the purpose, from your expertise, Marcor, of experts' testimony in a courtroom?
So, the purpose of an expert, well, to back up a little bit, the purpose of hiring and retaining an expert is that there's something that the expert has gained through his experience, his education, his study of the case, of the facts, that gives value that a person that does not have that expertise, which is most of us, none of us are experts in everything, but when my expertise happens to be of use in a case, that's to aid everyone else in trying the facts. And so the expert opinion is really pivotal to a case, because especially when there's complex phenomena that are not understood, the purpose is to make that clear and to help educate everyone involved so that the jury or the judge can make a better decision.
Now, and again, it's really, to me, it's just incredibly fascinating. Can you share an example of a project where you served as a forensic engineer and expert witness, Marcor?
Sure. So if the listeners, if you've been watching the slideshow, on my screen I can actually control it, but I don't know if you can. But the fourth or fifth slides in, the fourth through sixth slides in, I kind of prepared to share an example of a project. So I was involved as a design engineer in a building in Scottsdale, Arizona. We were retained to design a restaurant. It was a 4-story building, and the restaurant was going to go on the second and third level, and it was supported by a post-tension slab, which is basically a thick concrete slab that has cables running through it that are extremely highly stressed, to squeeze the slab so it can support the loads. So we found as we were doing our design engineering that the building actually couldn't support a restaurant. It had been supporting a restaurant, but it was never designed properly, and so that arose, that caused a dispute. So I went from a simple design project to a forensic study, and I basically had to show why the building was unsafe, and I had to design something to make it safe. And so in this particular study, I wasn't retained to provide expert testimony, but I prepared these slides. I did a little experiment with my 3-year-old of what I would show if I were to testify about this issue. So on one of the slides, you can see we put together some tiles, some of my kids' Magna tiles, and I supported those with a pencil, and I put the pencil with a pointy end up, and then I had my son stack some cans on top of it, and after when he got to the third can, it collapsed. And so the next slide, we took the pencil and we turned it upside down. So now pointy end down, the bottom end, which is more flat, is now supporting the tiles. And I had him stack cans up again, and as you can see, we got up to 4. We actually went 1 can more, but then the cans toppled over. And so this is the type of thing I would do in a testimony. I would take a phenomenon that's actually pretty complex. The slab was supported by columns. That's what the pencil is supposed to represent. And the columns at the top, they weren't wide enough. And there was actually a big danger if a lot of people congregated on that floor during a party or a wedding or something. there was a potential that floor could punch through those columns, just like that floor punched, just like the tiles punched through the pencil. And so that was the danger, but it wasn't seen until we dug into and tested and reviewed all the documentation and actually found a serious issue. And so we basically did what I showed here. We took that pencil and we widened it so that the floor could adequately support that. But so I would take some concept like that. And you can see the last picture shows what was actually done. Another of my sons there is holding some reinforcing bars. We drilled holes into the columns and slab and glued in some bars, and then we poured huge concrete capitals around there, and that made that building safe. So that's an example of of where, and this doesn't always happen. Sometimes things fail first. I prefer to be in control of discovering issues before they go wrong, and this was this is an example of that.
I'm like that too. I live trying to prevent problems before they happen, and you try your darndest. What sets you apart as a forensic engineer from your expertise that allows you to also excel as an expert witness, Marcor?
So probably the first thing, Jim, is so there's in my field there's a professional engineering license, and then there's also a structural engineering license that's kind of a specialty. It's not an easy license to get. In fact, it's the exam's like a 30% pass rate, but I decided that if I was going to learn how to do this well, I wanted to get that. So I, with the support of my wife, after many attempts, I passed that test, and that gave me, just going through that process of being able to master the concepts, prepared me really for the rigor that's involved in a forensic study. I also, during my master's program at BYU, I studied a failure of a mine collapse in central Utah, and visited the mine, or visited, not that mine, but visited other mines, and developed a method for better predicting when mine collapse might occur. And I wrote, for my master's thesis, I wrote that report, and I really loved the amount of discovery I had to do and the amount of detail I had to go into. So that kind of set me up for eventually finding this type of work and doing it. And I love it. It's every project and study is fascinating to me and unique.
It really is. You have to be curious, and you have to really be focused and have clarity. We have somebody that's calling in here, which I think is fantastic, who might want to share a quick story of maybe some of the experiences they've had with you and the company. Let's grab this line here and see who we have. Hi, you're on the Close-Up Television and Radio Close-Up Radio Show. Great to have you with us. Who's this?
Hi, my name's Shauna, and I'm from Northern California, and I've been working with Marcor since late October. I have a 10-acre ranch, and we had some, catastrophic damage, and everything he just explained and you talked about, it's lucky stands out to me. Lucky to have contacted him, lucky to have hired him and worked with him. He understood my main concern, premise, this was a catastrophe that I was experiencing. And his ability to take what I was saying, which I couldn't even understand, and just distill it and tell me, how we would move forward. He understood my main concerns, and he acted immediately, and he got someone out to my property to document everything, which is what I was basically needed immediately. It brings to mind the nature, human, and legal matters that he mentioned. All of that was swirling in my head. what caused this failure that I was experiencing. But within a week, his company came out and started the report, and then they explained the next steps. And from there, he's been professional, steadfast, and rigorous in coordinating everything I needed to explain what I saw that day that I called him. And I'm almost on the verge of tears. I'm so grateful to have been able to work with Marcor, and I'm so grateful that he took on this project, because it's our family home. It meant everything to us, and having him working with us has allowed me to move forward in basically, cleaning up and trying to move forward. And I can't express enough gratitude for Marcor's help. I mean, make it safe, lucky, all of that. It's so true. And everything that you guys just spoke about, he explained it, and that's what it is. And that's what makes it so important, is that he's not an attorney. He's not a contractor. He has no interest in anything other than finding the truth, and that's what I needed. And
right. Sounds like he delivered exactly what was promised, and then some. And we appreciate your taking the time to call us and share that story. That was very thoughtful of you, and thanks for hopping on the show with that. We thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And keep smiling. Obviously, your day has been made many times over with Marcor, I'm sure. Marcor, we've only got about 2 minutes left here, but hearing a comment like that, a testimonial, must just really solidify why you do what you do, huh?
Yeah, she put it perfectly. That's why I do what I do. It makes a difference in people's lives. Oftentimes we just need to, and even in disputes, people are really just trying to get to the bottom of things and discover the truth. And so I feel like what I do adds value, and especially when there's, when someone's really distressed because of it. And I've seen that often. And it's a real satisfaction for me to see, people lifted by they shed light.
And that's a benefit for the clients, and what we just heard is a benefit for whether they're homeowners, business owners, or really just about anyone, which I think is quite amazing. I want to let folks know their website is marcorforensicexpert.com, and let me spell that out for you: www.marcorforensicexpert.com. That is marcorforensicexpert.com. Marcor, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. This really was a pleasure learning about what you do, why you love it so much, and the importance of the work as a forensic engineer and expert witness. We go through our daily life. We forget about structural and civil engineers. We forget about, forensic work and expert witnesses and all these things that keep us safe, and you're doing yeoman's work. Thanks so much for joining us on Close Up Radio, and I wish you continued success, and I hope you'll join us again real soon. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure for me as well.
You are very, very welcome. Keep up the extraordinary work. Again, he's ahead of the game. He's always one step ahead, which is perfect. Forensic engineer and expert witness, Marcor Platt. Jim Masters here, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, stay tuned. We'll be back momentarily with another amazing guest right here on Close Up Radio. It's on for all of us. Thanks for being with us, and have a terrific day. Bye for now.
You have been listening to a broadcast from Close Up Radio, a division of Close Up Television Incorporated. For more information about our show and to be considered for future broadcasts, please visit closeuptelevision.com. You may also learn about us on social media and listen to us on podcast and internet radio. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you have an empowered and productive day.